Hi everyone, my name is James Marcuzzo. I'm your host for the KSS. This is a week 2 video about Jonathan Haidt's coddling versus strengthening. A lot of stuff here, so I'll try to narrow it down best I can. One of you made an interesting comment about how it's potentially a bad idea to allow students to debate or discuss ideas or conflicting values or something. That seems crazy to me, but I also think I understand why you might think that, because that's exactly the kind of thing that coddling would produce, is two individuals who don't even have a language, for lack of a better term. Obviously they're speaking like English or Italian or German or Chinese, whatever. They're speaking the same language, but they're not able to communicate about things. Coddling does that. Right? Strengthening specifically, right, would allow two students to say, we're gonna hash this out. We won't convince each other necessarily, and that's not always the point. Sometimes a debate is simply to understand where and why we disagree, not to convince one another that their position might be wrong. So I thought that was an interesting take, and I thought it was worth mentioning. Generally speaking, Haidt is obviously biased. It's a clear parody of coddling, and he clearly embraces strengthening. I tend to agree. But there are some interesting, or rather important points here. So we can look at Mortimer Adler, one of our articles from week 2, and we can say Haidt's approach to truth very much mirrors what Adler is encouraging us to engage in. Pursue the truth all the time as a moral obligation. Because, think about it, if you operate based on something that is real, your likelihood of success, right, is infinitely greater than if you were operating on an idea not based in reality, right? If you play baseball, but you're playing by American football rules, you're going to have a hard time because you're not even playing the same sport, right? Does that make sense? One of the big problems that coddling does is it prevents growth. And that's, I think, the biggest concern that I have. Coddling ideas, and so there's a connection here to the real world. The ideas that Haidt is talking about, that he explains as coddling, is woke culture. Woke culture comes out of critical theory. Critical theory comes out of postmodernism. Postmodernism comes out of neo-Marxism. There is a utopian strand through these philosophies, something I personally am interested in and research. We won't go down that path. If any of you are interested in hearing about any of that, just contact me and we can talk. So Haidt is confronting, in the universities at the time he's talking about this stuff, woke culture and critical theory. And it's producing students that are unable, they are rigid. They are unable to deal with conflicting or challenging ideas. Ideas that might force them to reimagine who they or what they are, or their views on the world and how it ought to be or what it actually is. And so Truth University, truth strengthening, right, it'll be hard because you will have to contend with some very potentially uncomfortable things. But when you are done, you will be ready to embrace a challenging, confusing, complicated world that is not interested in your comfortability. Coddling University has apparently been producing, based on some pretty decent evidence, students that are can have a hard time in the real world. And Haidt has dealt with this stuff firsthand. He dealt with students that attacked him, accused him of nefarious or malicious things, and they were all patently untrue. And so he takes this very seriously, he takes this personally. And I have a broader perspective on Haidt from his books, from his many lectures, and from his other discussions, and you all only have a bit of a smaller experience with him, so I understand the various perspectives. Good work, everyone, though, on talking about it in general. I liked reading through the discussion board. I always like reading disagreements more than I like reading agreements. That gives me something to argue or debate or to pick apart. Not that you understand. Disagreement is fruitful. Like that's exactly what we're talking about from Strengthening University. Disagreement, adversity is fruitful. There is room for growth and for deeper understanding. Existing in a safe bubble where nothing is challenged or you're not challenged, that's just, well. I am particularly interested, though, in some of you that wanted to walk down a middle path and talk about some of the benefits of coddling university as he explained them. And I thought that was somewhat interesting. And I only regret that we're not in a classroom so we can really kind of, as a group, play with these ideas and talk about some of those things. Uh, yeah. So I hope this was useful. Good work. Keep it up, and we'll talk again soon.